Good afternoon. We're coming to you from the Oceania Nautica with our summary on our transit of the Panama Canal.
Long and interesting day we had.
Definitely. And that's something you need to remember is it is going to be a long day if you're doing the full transit. And I don't think I would want to do anything else.
As far as
going from the Atlantic side to Gatun Lake and then turning around and going back because you miss so much of it. Those cruises are out there, but
if you want the full history and be immersed in what the Panama Canal is, you really need to go through the whole thing and understand we crossed the Continental Divide again in our lives, and it was pretty interesting.
So if you're thinking of doing a cruise that includes transiting the Panama Canal, whether you're like, I'm going to book it and do it later, or you do it first, you definitely want to do some reading and some research. There are a couple of books. One of them is Path Between the Seas by David McCullough. It is a very in-depth history of the building of the canal. I found it very interesting and a pretty easy read. And there's another one that we read that focuses on transiting the canal specifically, and it was published earlier this year.
That's what I read.
That one I can't remember the name of the book or the author specifically, but we'll include that in the comments right down below.
Yeah, obviously I don't remember the title either. So
and this is something that we did, is we made some notes, like this is where we're going to start, and this is the name of the place.
Yeah, we made notes, didn't we?
Okay,
someone made notes.
And brought those along. You will have an interpreter on board. They come on board with the pilot. In our case, and I talked to someone who had been through the canal before, and she said that's not unusual. But in this case, it was kind of big chunks of information that didn't necessarily line specifically up with where you were. Some of it came early, some of it came a little bit later. So for us, just having some notes that we had written out and took with us, I just stuck them in my pocket so I could pull them out from time to time. It really, really helped. The other thing that we did is we booked this on a smaller ship, and it wasn't that we were specifically looking for a small ship. We were looking at the itinerary. After we booked, we did find out a couple of things. The big ships, the big mega ships, are going to go through the newer locks, the ones that were opened in 2016, the Kokoli, I think it is, locks. And the smaller ships will go through the original older locks. And for us, at least, that was part of the really cool thing, was because these are the original locks from 1914.
When you look down and see, well, the one lock was 1913, it said on there.
Yep. That's when it was built and completed, but the whole canal wasn't completed and open until 1914. So, do some research first. Make sure you kind of have a sense of what you're going to see. We went from the Atlantic to the Pacific side. So weird seeing the sunrise on what your brain is telling you is south.
Yeah, and at one point it looks like it's setting on the wrong side. But it's just the direction you're traveling.
Right, because you're from going Atlantic to Pacific, you're not really going east to west. Through the isthmus, you're actually going north to south. Yeah.
Northwest to southeast.
And there were some real benefits of being on a smaller ship. For one thing, you weren't competing with thousands of people for a viewing spot.
But we did compete with people. But
from time to time. But most of the time, we could get a spot and see, or one of us could wiggle in among two other people. It's not like we were 5 rows of people back. So some benefits there. Another good tip is pay attention to the announcements and whatever the daily paper is or on the app of when pre-transit talks are going to be.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, we had a good speaker that talked about what we should expect to see and where to look. For instance, when you pass the first lock, you look back and see the Gatun Dam, which helped create this whole marvel.
right. It stopped the Chagres River, which was one of the big deterrents to being able to build the canal, because during the rainy season it would regularly rise 30 feet or more in a day and just wipe things out. So that was dammed up to control the flow of the river and create Gatun Lake, which provides not only fresh drinking water for the people of Panama, but it also is the reservoir for the Atlantic side locks.
Yes.
What other?
Well, up early.
Oh yeah, up early. Pay attention to the times that are posted in your app, in the paper planner, and listen to the announcements the night before, because the ship will have a time that they're in line to go. You don't have to wait in line with all the other ships.
You go straight in, but usually it's early because it takes all day to transit.
Right.
And it can vary somewhat. We heard some people talking, well, we're not exactly where we're supposed to be, and it's back-to-back ships.
It's back-to-back ships, and sometimes the time that, like the start time that they're scheduled for, may change the day before as the final details are confirmed. So pay attention to those things. Be ready to get up early. We were up at 5:30 in the morning.
If you take Deb with you to travel, she'll have you up way before dawn, looking right out on deck.
Well, we were up top. We went all the way up as far as we could go. We were up there at 6 o'clock. The sun was starting to rise. That you could see all the ships lined up waiting to go in, and they were all lit up. And not too long after we were up there, more people were coming up. So, and we crossed the harbor arms into the bay at Cologne at about 20 after 6. So we were there from the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we want to make sure? Oh, be outside. There are going to be places on a lot of the ships. Like here is a lounge up at the front of the bow of the ship, and they had chairs set up, they had snacks, they had all kinds of stuff, and people could see, and it was great. Those windows are tinted. A lot of times on ships, the windows
right at the forward part
at the bow are going to be tinted. And we had some of that up top with kind of a windscreen right at the bow, which turned some of the pictures a little bluish, but we were still outside. We could kind of get some angles from the side and whatnot, and change your vantage point. If you're up top for part of it, we went and sat on our balcony for a while we were going through the lake. We went down onto the promenade deck and watched as we were going through one lock, and we could see the walls in front of us. So change your vantage point throughout the day. Well,
and we didn't when we locked in, but when we locked down and the Pacific side, we went down and we could look at the side of the lock walls. You could almost touch them. Our ship's a little smaller, so it had some room, but some ships you have a couple feet of clearance on either side.
I think they said we had about 3 feet of clearance on either side. Some ships that have gone through have 11 inches on either side. As you're going out on the Pacific side, you're locking down. There's 3 locks up, 3 locks down. The locks on the Pacific side are divided into the Pedro Miguel.
Yeah.
Get the name somewhere there.
Pedro Miguel.
Pedro Miguel, that's a single lock, and then you go through Miraflores Lake
to the Miraflores Lock.
To the Miraflores Locks. That lake is much shorter. And then there's a set of 2 locks, which there's also a big visitor center there because it's not too far outside of Panama City with viewing platforms, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people.
All our fans were there waving.
Our fans were there waving, and we waved back. And
that'd be on the port side, as if you're going to the direction we went.
Correct. So. Yeah. And that was a lot of fun, and it was, kind of a little boost because it was getting to be a longer day at that point. And then once you come out of those last I can't say it.
Miraflores.
Thank you.
I may have butchered it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's Spanish.
Then you'll see the container port of Balboa, and as you're going through those locks, the new locks are to your starboard side as you're going towards the Pacific. And it is so bizarre to see a giant container ship halfway up the mountain from you. It's like, whoa. So anyway, we got through the locks and had kind of an interesting thing. There was a big container ship. It was sideways across the channel, canal side of the last bridge of the Americas. Well, and we weren't quite sure, is it docking at the container port? What's going on? And then as we're watching, 2 or more tugboats, we could see 2 from where we were, started to turn the ship. The channel's fairly narrow, and there's no way that a big container ship like that, to maintain within the speed limits of the canal, could make a turn from where they come out of the new locks, which they kind of are coming through so that they're coming out on an angle into the main channel of the canal, and then they have to get turned around to go that way. And
all very choreographed.
Very choreographed. And when I mention speed in the canal area, those are maintained very strictly because the danger of erosion is so high all through it.
And it's particularly when you're going through the area of the Continental Divide, you can see the soil and the hillsides. Why they had so much trouble building this canal is it would collapse, and it's all terraced right now, but there's constant erosion, and they're constantly fighting to keep that open.
Constant maintenance and everything. It was a Saturday when we went through, and there were crews and big machines and everything out working on one of the terraced areas where there had been a bit of a slide, and they needed to get it back up so it wasn't going to slide all the way down into the canal, because that was in the cut area.
Yeah, the Culebra Cut.
Well, it's been known as the Culebra Cut, but they changed the name on it, and I didn't catch from the interpreter on board what the name of it was, but I'll try and look that up and put it down in that first comment. So, anyway, stay up top or wherever you're watching from. Try and keep your day going through passage under that Bridge of the Americas. It's just kind of cool because right after you do that, you're essentially out to the Pacific. And it's going to be long. In our case, it was about a 12-hour a day from start to that point.
We weren't up late.
No.
Last night.
There was no going up to the lounge to dance or anything like that. We came back, took a shower. It was overcast. It was still muggy. Don't bother to take a shower in the morning. Just figure everybody's relying on their inner beauty that day.
Yeah, everybody was up early.
Everybody was up early.
Even a woman in her bathrobe out there. So.
Yeah, at one point. And so took a shower, went and had some dinner, and I think we were in bed by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
But it was well worth it. I would highly, highly recommend doing it if you like to cruise, if you like exploring new things. Panama Canal is definitely something to do. See you later.
Bye-bye.